Makes me feel very comfortable, actually. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Genesis G70 sedan. This is the base trim, 2-liter, standard, lowest level. Most of the things that you've been seeing on YouTube, all those press cars from the real car reviewers, not car reviewers like me, but the real deal, the guys that get the cars straight from the actual manufacturer, those are all using the 3.3-liter twin turbocharged, usually higher trim as well, so nicer interior, all that stuff. This is the base. This goes for $38,000 brand new. This is the rear-wheel drive version, not the all-wheel drive, and it has 252 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque, again coming from a 4-cylinder turbo, and it weighs 3,600 pounds, routed through an 8-speed automatic torque converter transmission. Now, I have been driving this car a little spiritedly, going up and down, scouting this road here in San Diego, and the brakes were very quickly cooking. So looks like they went with a pretty mild compound for the brake pad, because I wasn't even going. I got halfway down this section, and the fade was pretty intense, and as soon as I got out, I just saw a lot of smoke from both the fronts and the rears. All right, now first impressions. This is Genesis attempting a smaller sports luxury sedan, right? So competing with things like the BMW M340i, Audi S4, the Lexus IS, things like that. And let's see whether it hit the mark or not. Now, I'm driving on some pretty twisty, tighter roads right now, and I've been driving the car since this morning, have a little bit of experience with it. A couple things right off the bat. So this engine is definitely not the one you want to get if you are going to buy one. If you can afford the V6 twin turbo, definitely go with that option. The 3.3-liter puts out, what is it, like 100 horsepower and 100 pound-feet of torque more than this 4-cylinder. And that's going to make a big difference. The car doesn't feel super sluggish right now, but it does feel like it could use a little more oomph. As for the sound of the engine, with the turbocharged 4-cylinder, you can't really expect much, right? And it doesn't sound great. It also doesn't sound like a garbage disposal, which I can't say about my own car. So, you're not going to really write home or really highlight the sound at all. It's tolerable. I think they have fake engine noise, but I don't know how to disable it from the menu settings. But anyways, the transmission is actually pretty good. I was surprised. It's not like a ZF 8-speed by any means, but it's a lot quicker than expected. So I'm in Sport Plus mode right now. I've also held the traction control button, so I have no stability, no traction. And in the Sport mode, the shifts, I believe, are a little bit faster. And they're actually decently quick. Now, the gauge on the right is a screen, the gauge on the left is physical, and I definitely prefer the analog. It looks way better in person. You have that brushed metal look. It looks great. The gauge on the right is digital, but then they stylized it to look the same as the left side. I think on higher trims you have the blind spot camera that will show up there when you enable your indicators, but on this lower trim I don't get that. It just looks like a kind of cheap, weird, kind of asymmetric, unbalanced design. But what I think is pretty funny is it looks like the tachometer showing the revs is not totally accurate. So I'm in third, fourth. It'll drop the revs or increase the revs immediately when you tap the paddles, which gives you a false sense of like, oh, this is shifting really fast. But in reality, it's not actually shifting that fast, because you can hear and feel the engine catching up to what the rev count is actually saying, if that makes sense. So let me show you an example. So I'm gonna get up to fourth, or I'm in fifth. Now fourth. So do you see how there's a little bit of a lag? I can definitely feel it. I'm wondering if you can hear it. Anyways, that was a funny little thing that they did to try to make it seem like it's shifting faster. When the shifts are decent though, definitely for a torque converter. I would say this is above average for sure. Now the unfortunate thing is that you can't get it into a proper manual mode. You are, even in sport mode here, in sport mode you see it automatically upshifted. I did not want to upshift, but as soon as you get close to red line, boom, it goes to the next gear. If you stop, if you get to a standstill and you resume, it goes back to D, just for normal drive. so it's not going to hold your gears the way you want, which is kind of annoying. There's no proper manual mode. And the cool thing is I actually feel comfortable in this car besides the brakes. The brakes are the absolute weak spot that I've given out. That's why I'm pushing it a little bit harder going uphill than downhill. As I'm talking to you, I'm getting some understeer earlier, as you saw. I'm getting some oversteer. It doesn't oversteer as willingly as the other reviewers make it sound to be, and I think that's because they're in the 3.3 liter. And I think that those higher trims also have a limited slip or a Torsen limited slip differential, whereas this one I'm pretty sure is open based on the behavior that I've seen so far today. I really have to toss it and really try hard to get the tail out, but once it is, it's very easy to control. It makes me feel very comfortable, actually. Now the steering in this car, I mean, first impression, it is surprisingly good. And I wasn't expecting that in a car like this. I mean, it's supposed to be sportier, but amongst sportier sedans that I have driven, this is definitely better than average. I will say that with a car like this that has a lot of miles and that's been used and abused by other people, you are more likely to have issues with a looser rack, because at a standstill, when the car is parked, people may still be tugging on the wheel, which is not good for the power steering system. And overall, it's a very good steering rack. I'm getting feedback, it loads up, it's progressive. However, I noticed on the highway when I was driving here at like 70, 80 miles an hour, on center, super dead. There was a lot of like play and wiggle that I did not like. But as soon as you're turning, and even if you're a little bit off that center, it feels great, actually. It feels, I mean, it's no BRZ, it's no Porsche Cayman, but for a car of this type, I think they did a very good job, for sure. Yeah, open diff makes the oversteer a little bit not ideal, let's say that. The other thing about this car is I'm actually impressed by the interior. So when you touch certain places, it feels kind of cheap, but for the most part, it's definitely a nice cabin to be in. I would say that, and I like that this is a little bit more old school with a lot of the manual and non-digital touch controls for climate, for all those things that can adjust the temperature, boom, just like that. No need to touch the screen. And the interior space, the front is fine. The back is tiny. I'm 6'1", but I'm mostly legs, actually. My torso isn't that long, and my head hits the ceiling in the back. So not really one of those cars that you want to do road trips with people in the back, unless they're smaller children or just smaller people overall. The other thing about the car is the weight. This weighs 3,600 pounds. It actually kind of fluctuates between, I believe, 3,500 to 3,800, depending on the trim you get. And it's a heavy car, right? I mean, you feel it. They didn't spring this too tight. They also didn't spring it too soft. I think they did a good job balancing it so that it feels sporty enough while still being comfortable, because you don't want it to be hardcore sports car and not comfy, but then you also don't want it to be a big wallowy kind of thing. If I were to buy one practical daily car, then having a compromised approach where you have a sedan that's kind of sporty, kind of luxurious, that makes sense. But if you want the best of both worlds, then obviously you want to have a more luxurious car that doesn't have the sporty focus. So you have a really comfortable plush cruiser, and then you have the other track toy, convertible, coupe, whatever sports car that's going to be a little more fun, a little more focused. Yeah, transmission is definitely, like, the behavior is not ideal. The speed at which it shifts, though, is again quite good. That was kind of a rough shift. God, those tires are squealing for mercy. the way that it plays at the limit is actually very, ooh, squirrel. It's very predictable and very easy to control. Again, apart from the open diff, other than that, and you kind of need to toss it to get it to oversteer, it's not as tail happy as I would have expected from the reviews, but I'm still enjoying this. This is a good car. Now, if you guys haven't already, be sure to check out my Jubbal and Cars Driving Index, and that's where I standardize and rate all the cars that I drive and review on this channel. And the last field is called congruence, and that's where I describe the car's ethos, whether the marketing, the advertising, the way the car behaves, is that all aligned? So the Ford Mustang is trying to be a sports car, but it doesn't really behave like a sports car, so it had a lower congruence score. Whereas the Cayman, it is trying to be a sports car, and it behaves like one, so it has a higher congruence, although, you know, some limitations with gearing, transmission, things like that. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have a car in Los Angeles, San Diego, or Las Vegas that you want me to review, then please do reach out. Hit me up on Instagram at KevinJubbalMD. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you guys in that next one.